Everyone, welcome. I am so pleased to welcome you to tonight's event. If you're joining us for the first time, we are thrilled to welcome you to Zioness. We are a domestic social justice activist organization working to advance social, racial, economic, and gender justice in America, and also to fight anti-Semitism and its modern incarnation, which is often referred to as anti-Zionism. The overwhelming majority of American Jews identify as liberals, deeply committed to tikkun olam, to building a better world. We're also Zionists. We're fervently supportive of Jewish emancipation and self-determination in our ancestral homeland. Our progressive values and our Zionism are inextricable and mutually empowering. Zionism to us is the ultimate and original progressive movement, a movement of liberation for the world's most enduring persecuted community. And our experience fighting oppression and persecution for millennia as Jews is what drives our work as Zionesses, lifting our voices to advance and protect the many other marginalized communities in today's America. We know you're going to love this event, and we hope you'll follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms at Zioness Movement to stay up to date on other events, progressive actions, and opportunities for engagement. We have 35 chapters all across the country. So if you reach out at about@zioness.org, we can connect you to your local chapter and help you find ways to get more involved. And if you are so inclined, we would be extraordinarily grateful for your support as we are a rapidly growing organization working to meet the urgent demand for exactly this community that we are building across the country. So it is such a privilege to be here. Dr. Ruth is the embodiment of all of our values at Zioness. She is a trailblazing fighter for women, for our LGBTQ siblings, for racial justice and equality, and of course, for the Jewish people and for Zionism. And as lucky as we feel to have her here with us tonight, I have to say we feel even luckier to have her granddaughter, Leora Einleger, who will be interviewing Dr. Ruth tonight as a valued member of the Zioness team. Leora's passion and dedication and intelligence and creativity and work ethic have made her truly invaluable in this moment of growth for this organization. And I know she's mortified right now, but I really have to say, I don't know what I would do without her.
I want to second that motion.
I knew you would.
I think you are absolutely right, Amanda. She is like superb. Go on.
She is more than super. She is incredible. And it is no surprise, given all of her accomplishments at such a young age, that she comes from a family of trailblazers. So with that, I am going to step aside and let these incredible women take it from here. It is my absolute pleasure to turn it over to Leora to introduce a true American treasure and a one-of-a-kind Jewish treasure, Dr. Ruth K. Westheimer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Welcome, everybody. So happy to have you here. Thank you to my grandma, my Omi. I call her Omi, which means grandma, Grammy, right, in German. Thank you for being here. So just a little intro on my grandma. While most people know her as Dr. Ruth, the sex therapist with a TV show, radio show, and over 40 books, my grandma lived an entirely different life before she became famous. Born in Germany in 1928, my grandma grew up in a traditionally Orthodox Jewish home. By age 10, she was sent on a kinder transport to Switzerland, as her parents and grandmother were sent to the death camps. At age 17, she immigrated to Palestine and joined the Haganah. From Israel, she traveled to Paris and finally settled in New York. Her experiences early on in life led her to lead a life of helping others. Whether she was helping a girl who was crying on the kinder transport by giving up her only doll, or standing up for the LGBTQ community during the AIDS epidemic, or even educating millions of people on her TV and radio shows, my Omi has made it her life goal to help others because she knows how fortunate she is to have survived. Her favorite saying, joie de vivre. Omi, how do you pronounce it? You can correct me. Joie.
Okay, joie de vivre.
Joie de vivre.
Okay. Joie de vivre.
Joie de vivre. One of us speaks 5 languages, and it's clearly not me. Her joy of life embodies how she has turned a childhood of terror and destruction into a life of happiness and joy. So thank you for being here, Omi.
Thank you so much.
So many people, yeah?
I just want to show you that because of your organization, Zionists, that you are so enthusiastic about, look what I have already brought. I brought the Israeli flag just for you.
Thank you.
Leora, that's in your honor and in honor of Zionists. Go ahead.
I love it. Love it. So, Omi, so many people are looking to you because of your joie de vivre. And what have you been doing now during this very unprecedented, troubling time to stay busy and to stay optimistic?
Yeah, very, very important. I have to tell you one thing that tells me from my past of how I know how to survive. When I was in Jerusalem, we'll talk later a little more about that. When I was in Jerusalem during Tzena, during the time that Jerusalem was disconnected from the rest of Israel, and there was only one road going up to Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, we had 1 glass of water a day and no food, very little food. And look, right now here, despite the fact that this is a sad happening, no question, and tragic happening for many, look, I have plenty of water and I have plenty of food, and I have a daughter, Miriam, your mother, and I have a Leora, and you have a brother, Ari, and I have a son-in-law, Joel, a son, Joel, in Ottawa. We talk every day, who's a professor, his wife, Barbara, professor, and Michal and Ben, 2 more grandchildren. So I have every reason to be thankful, despite the fact that I never forget where I came from. Also, when you mentioned the train ride, that reminded me that in 1939, on January 5th, 1939, I was sent to Switzerland with a Kindertransport. If I had not been with that Kindertransport, I would not be alive, because now 10,000 children went to England, they all survived. 300 went to Holland, Belgium, and France. They did not survive. For some reason, I was with a group of the Kindertransport to Switzerland, supposedly for 6 months, so that parents should be able to pack up and leave Germany. As you know, that did not happen. I stayed in Switzerland in the children's home for 6 years, and the children's home became an orphanage. Now, when you ask me, how can I keep my joie de vivre? I have an obligation, Leora, to make something out of my life, because I survived. My parents did not survive. The grandmother from Frankfurt didn't survive. The grandparents of Wiesenfeld, nobody else survived. I did not know that making something out of my life would be talking about sex all day long. That I did not know, but I knew that I had to kind of say to myself, I have to make a dent in society. I have to do something for others. I have to stand up. And in my particular case, there was no question that I was going to then Palestine. Now I have to tell you something. Today, Leorelle, I was supposed to be in Israel with you and your family and Joel and his family to get an honorary doctorate from Ben Gurion University. Can you see my sign? Ben Gurion University?
Yes. Yeah.
Amanda, can you see it? So as it happens,
yes.
But they're not giving the doctorate to somebody else. They're going to hold it for me until we all can travel. Interesting. I have a few honorary doctorates from this country, but the one Ben Gurion is the first in Israel, and I can't explain properly how much I love that idea, because all of you are too young. But I do remember 1948, I heard Ben Gurion in Tel Aviv. I was in Jerusalem. declaring the state of Israel for the Jews. And I danced the whole night in Jerusalem. So for you, Leora, for my granddaughter, to be involved in an organization that talks about Zionists, and that talks about Zionism, and that talks about anti-Semitism, is just such a joy that I'm very, very grateful to Amanda to hire you. So I did not know I would not live in Israel. When I was in Israel, I was a kibbutznik. I picked tomatoes for a whole day. I picked apples. And then I decided I needed to learn something. And I went to Jerusalem to become a kindergarten teacher. I thought my life would be in Israel. As it happened, I'm not complaining. I became Dr. Ruth after Paris and coming here. However, as you know, I go to Israel every single year. I have Ben Gurion's picture with Golda Meir right in my living room. Come here, I tell you something, a secret, because you want to talk a little about sex. In that picture, it looks as if they had an affair. They did not have an affair. I know that. I read Ben Gurion's book, I read Golda Meir's book, but it looks like it. So that makes me smile. It makes me very happy that you are involved with Amanda, with other people in an endeavor to fight anti-Semitism and to make sure that people have a positive attitude towards Israel. That's why it's called Zion.
You got it. So I'm going to go back a little bit for people that may not have yet seen the Hulu documentary on your life. So like I said, my grandma fought in the Haganah, and I love telling people that, so after my grandma fought in the Haganah, my mom, when she, right after college, made Aliyah and joined the Israeli army. So it's 2 generations of women in my family who
and she went to the army.
Exactly. And it wasn't the men, just saying. It was the women in our family. I haven't done that yet. We'll see. But you grew up without Israel. Like when I grew up, Israel was a fact. And when you grew up, people were still yearning for Israel. And especially during the Holocaust, you know, this was like a home. So what was it like to be in Israel, and why did you ultimately decide that you were going to make your home in New York?
Right. So the coming to New York was an accident. However, when I was the orphan in Switzerland, I knew already. I was 10 when I got there, and I was 17 when I left for Palestine. I knew that I had to fight for Jews to have a homeland. I knew that. I knew about Herzl, Theodor Herzl. I have that picture of him in Basel. And I knew that it could not happen again, that Jews would be persecuted and would not have a place to go. Now, I tell you something else. The then Palestine, the Jewish agency, they were very clever. They sent very good-looking guys to Switzerland to be shlichim. I do remember their names. I know them all. So it was not so difficult to become enthusiastic of a homeland for Jews, so that it should never be again no place to go to, and to be part of this historical event of building a country for Jews with Jews. I did not know that I would not live there, but as I told you before, I go every single year, and I have taught all over Israel for family planning, for Planned Parenthood, sex education, sex therapy. So I feel very connected to Israel. So for you to be involved with an organization, Zionist, is just happiness for me. Now, you did ask me how did I keep my optimism.
Yeah.
I did a study of those children, 50 of them, who became orphans in Switzerland, who left Germany, as you saw in the movie Ask Dr. Ruth, on a railroad station to say goodbye to mother and grandmother. My father had already been taken by the Nazis. They waved goodbye. And it was clear that I thought they would eventually survive and I would be reunited with them. But already on that train, I was 10 and a half. There were children who were crying. I was very sad, but I knew that I had to make them laugh. So I made them sing the songs of the synagogue from Frankfurt, the songs of the German songs, Hänschenklein, which is also translated to Hebrew, Yochanan HaKatan, little Hänschen, who leaves the house but comes back. So I wanted to see that there can be little bit joy on that train. Then here's the story of the doll. Erna was sitting and crying. She was younger than me. There was only one doll out of the 10 dolls that I had that was with me. I gave it to her. I thought she needs it more than me. She was 8. I was already 10 and a half. Later, I met Erna in the United States. I said, Erna, do you remember that I gave you my only doll because you were crying? She didn't remember. Now, I don't know that she knew that I was a sniper in the Haganah, but I could have killed her. But I didn't kill her. I just thought, c'est la vie, such is life. She didn't remember. And so in Israel, to explain, that wasn't an act of heroism on my part. Everybody belonged to a unit. When your mother made Aliyah, when she went to Israel, she also went to the army. But that was different. In those years, she went because she wanted to go. In those years when I was in Israel, everybody went to some unit. I went to the Haganah, the underground, and for some reason, which I can never explain, I became a sharpshooter. I became a sniper. I can still put, you see it in the film, a Sten gun together. I knew how to throw hand grenades. I'm very fortunate I never killed anybody, but if need would have been, I could have killed somebody. So I was, and then
there was no difference then between what the women and the men were doing, right? Like it wasn't as if the men were in combat and the women were doing behind the scenes work. You were prepared to be in combat.
Yeah, but you know what, Leora? That was out of necessity. They had to take every able-bodied to be able to defend the country. Now I want to tell you fast what happened on my birthday. June 4th.
Yes.
Or June 4th, 1948, my 20th birthday. I was on a rooftop watching over the Arab cars because the soldiers were checking each car if there were weapons. If something would have happened, I had a radio, I would have had to call for help, or I could have thrown that hand grenade, which I knew how to do, or the Sten gun. Luckily, I've never killed anybody. I went after being on a rooftop in Jerusalem, Rehov Radak, I remember, Rehov Radak 32, Radak Street 32. I remember where I was. I went back to the girls' residence, not far from there. The alarm sounded. I knew what it meant. When the alarm sounds, you go to a shelter. I was stupid because it was my birthday, my 20th birthday. Somebody had given me a book. I wanted not to waste time. So I wanted to go back to the room, pick up the book, go then to the shelter. Big mistake. I went down to the lobby and a big cannonball exploded. It killed 2 girls next to me and it wounded me very badly on both legs. fortunately, I could have lost both legs. Fortunately, there was a surgeon at the Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem who fixed me, because my whole life, until recently, I could dance the whole night and I could ski. So I was lucky. Now I know that you want me to say something a little bit about sexy. Okay, come here. I'm in the hospital and there is a room full of soldiers.
Yeah.
There was no space for me, but they put me on a shelf because it used to be a library.
Say how tall you are, just for context.
And they put me on a shelf because I'm so short.
Right.
There was a very good-looking medical student. I know he was from Romania, and he worked as a nurse, and he took care of me. And what I did, come near Leora, what I did, I made believe that I couldn't use my hands. Nonsense. My feet were broken, not my hands. My hands were fine. So he had to come 3 times a day to feed me. It was wonderful.
One of my favorite scenes in the documentary is when you're talking with Putz, who was your boyfriend from when you were maybe
Walter.
how old? Yeah, how old were you when in Switzerland? Right, you were maybe 13 or so.
Yes.
And you're still good friends today. I love it.
Go every year to visit, and he's a documentary, and he was very handsome. But even more important, you can't even imagine that, Leora, today. Girls in those years, the girls from the home, from the orphanage, could not go to high school. 8th grade, and that was it. And we had to learn to be housemaids because they knew that we had to earn our living eventually. Mm-hmm. So I learned to be a housemaid. You wouldn't see that when you come to my apartment.
Not a good one. Not a good one.
But I tell you something. So when I could not go to high school, that was very, very upsetting to me. Because my father said, education is the most important thing. Nobody can take education from you. So you're graduating from Barnard, and I was there, and you cum laude. And the happiness of all my 4 grandchildren is fantastic. But let me tell you what I did with that boyfriend. He was permitted to go to school because he was a boy.
Right.
He brought home his books. He sneaked into my room. He lived in a room above mine. He went under my bed. I took his books. I went out on the landing of the staircase and I studied from his books, and he helped me. So, but I couldn't study chemistry or mathematics or physics, but I could study some English, some literature, some geography. So I'm very grateful to him. He was shivering under the bed, remember in the film?
Yeah.
Because he was worried that Fräulein Riesenfeld, the headmistress, who came every time in to check that she would find him, would have been terrible.
But he does say in the film that even though he worked hard to make sure that you could learn anything you wanted, you had to be smart to do that. You couldn't just pick up a book and, keep the knowledge. You were able to do that yourself. I love that line.
It was nice because I did remember my father, who was a learned man, saying, knowledge, nobody can take away from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
So I want to talk a little bit about your impact in America, and especially in movements for sexuality revolution and gender equality movements. You often say that somebody who talks about sex so much can't be political, except for 2 things. And those 2 things you often say are, or do you want to say them?
No, you say them.
Okay. That the 2 things she will speak about that are political are access to abortion, which has to remain legal, and when you saw the Trump administration when there were migrant children being separated from their parents, you found that very upsetting and spoke out because that's your story.
Right. That makes me very sad to see families, children being separated from their families on the borders. That's my story. And the issue of abortion, because there will always be contraceptive failures, and abortion has to remain legal. Otherwise, only women with money will be able to get an abortion, because they can go to Europe or to to some other country where it's permitted. So I do speak up about that, despite the fact that I've always said, somebody who talks about orgasm and erection from morning to night, but not to my grandchildren.
Never.
I didn't do sex education for you. Your parents did it. So that I have to stand up to be counted for that.
Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know how you went from becoming from a orphan of the Holocaust, as you say, to a sniper in the Haganah, to a world famous sex therapist, can you talk a little bit about when you got to America? I know you were working as a housemaid. You were a single mom raising my mom for the first 6 years of her life. How did you get from there to somebody with radio and TV shows?
Very important for all of you young people. Always to take an opportunity when it presents itself. I was fortunate. I worked in public health at Columbia University part-time. And fortunately for me, the money ran out on that project. And luckily for me, I got an offer to work for Planned Parenthood of New York City. I took in research. I thought these people, something is wrong with them. Because all they did, I came home and I told Freddie, my husband, my late husband, I said, something is wrong with these people. They don't talk about the weather. They don't talk about food. They don't talk about anything, not even skiing, except about sex. 48 hours later, I said, oops, what an interesting subject matter. And that's how I did my doctoral dissertation. And then I realized I did not know enough to give really good advice. And I was accepted at Cornell Medical School in a program by Dr. Helen Singer Kaplan. And she was the most famous sex therapist. She wrote a book, The New Sex Therapy. And I was in that program and I worked with her for 5 years, 3 years being trained, 2 years on the staff, and learned a great deal. That's how I had the academic background to be able to teach sex education, and the clinical background to be able to be a sex therapist.
Can you quickly tell the story of your accent, because you're so known by your accent, and can you say the quick story of what happened when you first got to the country?
Okay, I thought, first of all, that somebody said you have to take speech lessons. How could I take speech lessons? I had a little child to support. I had no money for speech lessons. Thank God, because when I got the radio program, which I did for 10 years every Sunday night, when I said orgasm or erection or anything but sex, people knew it was me because of that accent.
Right.
So, so I'm glad I never took speech lessons. But I have to tell you, there was once a play about me by Deborah Jo Rapp. She played me. She took speech lessons and trying to get my accent. And Miriam, your mother, said she never got your accent. And I'm glad she never did, because I want people to know it's me when they open radio or television. So the accent helped me, because Americans also could say, what a European woman from Israel, but originally from Europe. And no American would ever talk about things like that. So they could take that distance.
Right.
So
So
I'm glad I have that accent. I know you
yes,
want
me
to ask
too.
me that question about the G spot. Ask me.
No, I thought you were going to bring it up. For context, there's been
Amanda wants
some.
to hear about the G spot.
I think everybody wants to hear about the G spot.
Okay, Omi, you go for it.
Okay, so I have always, all of these years, I have said I don't talk about a G-spot because I don't have scientifically validated data that there is such a thing. And I don't want more women to come to me and say they think they're not normal because they don't find the G-spot, the Grafenberg spot, which some people said is inside the vagina, if properly stimulated, would bring about a fantastic kind of an orgasm. I want you to know that I'm blushing when I talk about that to my granddaughter. I also didn't want men to think if they can't find the G-spot that they're not good lovers. Only this month in Cosmopolitan, there is an article, very well researched. Guess what, all of you Zionist people, no such thing as a G-spot. I'm jumping for joy with it. I got 10 copies. Whoever wants a copy,
She's
go
giving
and
me
get
money.
the copy.
If anybody wants, let us know.
I get the copy this month of Cosmopolitan, and I'm delighted because it takes away of this kind of myth and worry that somebody would not be normal. So it proves my sticking in the mud, my being so careful, my not going on a bandwagon is paying off. Very nice. At the age of almost 92.
And that's a perfect example of exactly. My grandma's turning 92 on June 4th in a few weeks, and is busier than ever, way busier than I will ever be. And during this whole coronavirus time is, researching and learning all about G-spot and all that stuff. So
and teaching at Columbia. And I just finished the Teachers College, and they just told me, listen, all of you, they just told me at Teachers College, I'm now teaching there for 4 or 5 years, one course in the spring, and they told me about the family in the media. They told me I'll do it again next year. And I'm also teaching at Hunter, and they're also working on next year. So that's very nice. That's like an adjunct, which is like once a week. And it's very nice. I'm very pleased that I can still do that.
Me too. So, yeah. Omi, a lot of people have been talking about coronavirus now and comparing it to the AIDS epidemic when there was so much confusion and anxiety. So I grew up always knowing that you were a champion of respect for people in the LGBTQ community. During the AIDS epidemic. You would say that respect is non-negotiable, right?
Right. The respect is not debatable. Right?
Not debatable. So right. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because right. I think you were way ahead of your time with that. When you were standing up for marginalized communities, that wasn't the norm.
But this came out of a wonderful question, Leora. But this came all out of my background as a refugee, as a Jewish refugee, as an orphan, knowing that you have to stand up for people who don't have a voice. So in terms of homosexuality, I always said we don't know the etiology. That means the reason for homosexuality. But the one thing that I know, that, like you said, that respect is not debatable. And then when the AIDS crisis came, I did have some friends who had AIDS, who died. And it was very sad because in those years, you couldn't even openly talk about it. People didn't believe that there's such a thing. So I certainly helped by saying how careful you have to be. And these days, with that virus, all I say is, they told me to stay home. I am part of endangered species because I'm old, and they said to stay home. I'm waiting for Governor Cuomo to say, Dr. Ruth, now you can go out. And we have to keep our belief in the health professionals, in the people who are helping, which I do every evening at 7 o'clock. I go to the window and I clap. We have to make sure that they have all of the implements, all of the things that they need, and that we will find a vaccine. I did not think that I would live through a time where I could not go out of the apartment.
But you're amazing, and you stay happy no matter what.
Yeah, it's not that I'm like happy about it,
right?
But I keep my head above by saying, eventually the physicians, the health people are going to find a vaccine, and it's a very sad state of affairs right now, but we'll all get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to open it up to questions in a few minutes. So if you have questions, we're getting some in the Q&A box, but please write there or comment on the Facebook Live page. But before we do, Omi, since you are the expert on relationships, how should people make sure to maintain, how can they maintain their relationships during this time when everything is done virtually?
Right. So the relationship, if the people who have a good relationship, the relationship is going to survive. People who have not a good relationship, where there is conflict, where there are big problems, might have to go to see a therapist after all of this is over. But there is no question that people have to listen to the authority who will say when we can go out and visit again. So I'm very disciplined. I'm very much stick in the mud. Governor Cuomo has not said yet that I can go out. I'm home.
The day he calls you, though, you'll be out. The day he calls you.
I'll call you. You be the first one, and then you pick me up, okay?
Definitely.
Okay.
So we're getting a few questions. So the first question that I want to ask is, if you could give your 16-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
To my 16-year-old, I would say, if you are religious, believe in God. If you're not religious, find something to believe in, but never, ever give up hope. Keep that precious hope of better times very, very carefully in a box and look at it every day and promise never to give up hope. So I would say you have to keep up your belief that things will pass, that it's very difficult right now. I will never minimize it. And it's very difficult for people who are alone. Difficult for people in bad relationships because they are together, but also very difficult for lonely people. And they have to keep up the hope that this will pass, and they will have learned something of how to value a relationship even more.
Yeah. And you always talk about the importance of human connection. So even just calling each other on the phone, if you can't do Zoom, and staying in touch with people is so important.
Very important. And you young people like you, Leora, are so fortunate with all of that Zoom stuff, because you can be in touch with people even more than people like me who are not computer literate, who need you and your mother Miriam to set it up. Very important not to permit the loneliness to make you feel depressed.
Yeah.
Anybody loud and clear, young people or older people, anybody who feels depressed, please to call a professional. Not to sit there alone with a depression, because it doesn't go away by itself. Make sure you have a phone number of a mental health professional that you can call and talk.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So another question is, how do you keep your energy up so much at almost 92?
So I'm very fortunate that I do have energy because I love what I'm doing. And I think that's really the answer to the issue of energy. But I also don't let anybody call me on the phone, not even my granddaughter, whom I adore, before 10 a.m. because I sleep well and I protect that. I go to sleep at midnight and I don't let anybody call me before 10 a.m. unless it's some emergency, but otherwise call me after 10 a.m. And I think that by doing Zoom like this, by belonging to a Zionist organization, by my listening to the synagogue on Friday night, first 5:30 Rabbi Katz in Riverdale, and then the Central Synagogue by Angela at 6. So I find things that I can listen to, especially with this machine, when your mother sets it up for me. Also, I asked your mother, what can I do tonight? And she finds something. United Jewish and some series or something that is pleasurable.
For context, we've set up a remote system so we can control my grandma's computer from afar, which has been great because she can watch movies, she can do Zooms, and we don't have to come over.
Right.
So another question is, what do you think is something about sex and aging that people don't know?
Okay, there is plenty of things. I have to plug a book. I did a book called Sex Over 50. There are many things people don't know. I give you 2 examples. One, women don't know that they have to use a lubricant in order to engage in intercourse at a certain age. Otherwise, it's painful. Otherwise, she's going to say to a sex therapist like me, it hurts, who needs it? Men have to know to engage in sex, older men, in the mornings when it's easier to have an erection and not when they are tired at night and they need to be touched or touch that penis themselves. So there is a whole body of scientific knowledge that older people have to know. Also, older people should engage in sex in the mornings, not when they are tired at night. In the mornings, hang up the phone or leave your television off and then have good sex. And if there's a problem, go and find an answer.
All right, I'm going to switch the topic a little bit for my own sake. What was the reason you left Israel and moved to New York?
I did not really leave Israel to New York. I was finished studying in Paris. I came to New York to visit an uncle. My whole family was killed by the Nazis. One uncle, Max, went from Germany to Shanghai and to San Francisco. And I wanted to visit him. I wanted to check if he's as short as me. He was short, but not as short as me. So I said, let me go once to the United States and look what happened. I went with a boyfriend whom I then married. I had my gorgeous daughter, Miriam, your mother. And then it took a year before I saw Uncle Max in San Francisco. I did not know that I would stay here. Like many Israelis who live in other countries, I always thought that eventually I'll get my doctorate and eventually I'll go back to Israel. Life has changed that. I'm not complaining, but my commitment to Israel and my commitment to go every single year has not changed.
Yeah. And for so many immigrants, I think, you know, the Statue of Liberty is, it
Very
means so
important.
much to them. And I think for you too, right? Like when you came to New York, you were, as you say, you were in steerage, you were in fourth class. Yeah.
And I went in fourth class, but I sneaked up to see the Statue of Liberty. And you know what? I'm now a member on the board of directors of the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust. And when I go to the meetings, it's down at Battery Place. When I go to the meetings, the first thing I do is wave to the Statue of Liberty and say that we have to honor that statue and we have to let immigrants come in here and refugees to build up a new life like I did.
Yeah. So what is one of the most common questions that you get?
The most what question?
The most common question you get.
Common question.
Yeah.
I think that the most common question is not only about sexual satisfaction. I think it's the most common question is how to find a partner, how not to be lonely. The issue of how to find sexual satisfaction, how to have a wonderful sex life comes afterwards.
Yeah.
First, to find a partner that you really are happy with.
So that fits in to another question we have here, which is, do you believe in soulmates?
In what?
In soulmates, in people being soulmates for each other.
I don't know, that's a word I don't use, but
Yeah.
I do believe the best relationship is if you are friends with each other. So if soulmate means friends, yes, that's very important for a whole lifetime.
Good. Okay. Let's see some other questions we have here. So what do you do on a typical day in quarantine? Because you're in your house. I know that you're busy all the time. What have you been working on now?
So first of all, here is what I'm working on. I just finished grading the papers for Columbia University Teachers College. And I have just finished the course at Hunter. And I'm praying that we can do it again next year. Right now, I have something brand new. The documentary that you mentioned, Ask Dr. Ruth, has part of animation. Part of the animation of me as a child is now being augmented. And by June 4th, we are going to have an animated film. I will see the first draft on June 4th on my birthday, and an animated film for children for junior high, like I would say 4th or 5th grade on, that will go together with a book that I did, Roller Coaster Grammar. In that book, I'm talking about being an orphan. I'm talking about being alone, but I'm also talking about taking 2 of my 4 grandchildren to an amusement park to go on a ride. We get measured. They can go on the ride and I'm too short. So you see, I always try to find something that is humorous. That book is called Roller Coaster Grammar. So I'm right now working on that. Oh, wait, very important for Zionist people. My book, Sexuality in the Jewish Tradition, called Heavenly Sex. Right now, we made some changes. It's coming out NYU Press right now in the next month. And it will be a classic, will never go out of print. So that makes me very happy. So you see that I'm too busy. And then I talk to my granddaughter Leora, who checks up on me every day. And so do the Canadians and Ari and Michal and Ben.
Yeah. What is a place in Israel that gives you the most joy, or one of the places that you love visiting when you're in Israel?
Mm-hmm. So in the film, as Dr. Ruth, I'm showing a barn where I had the first time sex. Go and watch the film. It's on Hulu. And I love the most, I think, Jerusalem, because it has all of that history. I passed by the building where, what I told you before, where I got badly wounded. And I said, thank God that I did not lose my 2 feet. And everything in Jerusalem is really wonderful to visit again and again. Every time that I'm in Israel, I'm not an Orthodox Jew anymore. I was Orthodox Jewish when I was 10, but I go always to the wall and I put in my pitka, I put in my little piece of paper asking for good health for the whole family, including Liora from Zionist. So there are plenty of my wishes in that wall.
Yes.
In that western wall.
We're going back and forth here. There are a lot of various questions, but this next one is, can you talk about your association, or if, you know, the work you did, how that related to the work of Masters and Johnson?
Okay, I learned from Masters and Johnson. I did meet Masters and Johnson, but he was already late in his life and a little bit feeble. But I did meet him and I met her, Johnson. And I think they did a fabulous, fabulous job in doing that research that they did, which all of us, every sex therapist, is learning from. But the most I learned from is from the mentor Helen Singer Kaplan. That book is still a classic. It's called The New Sex Therapy. Helen Singer Kaplan.
Okay, next question. You're getting a lot of them, Omi. So this person says, thank you. My daughter and her friends use dating apps to meet people. What do you think of these apps? And do you think that they're changing relationships at all by using the apps?
I'm all for apps because that's how you young people meet. However, you have to be careful because online you can lie. Somebody can say I'm 6 feet tall when I'm only 4'7". Somebody can say all kind of lies that you did. So you have to be careful and never ever to meet with anybody in a secluded area. When you meet for the first time, you must meet in the lobby of a hotel or in a public place. I don't care. It can be the railroad station, Grand Central. It can be any place that is public. And then if you meet and you don't like what you see, you can say, I have developed a bad headache, goodbye, and go. But not to meet in a secluded place. But otherwise, since I don't want people to be lonely, by all means to use all of the dating apps and services.
Okay. Okay, another question is, do you think that the coronavirus has added to your gratitude, just as your experiences in life added to your gratitude for all of the blessings you have?
Very interesting question. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. On the one hand, I'm disciplined. They tell me to stay home, I stay home. On the other hand, I'm very grateful that even so I'm an endangered species in terms of age, that I'm healthy and that I can enjoy the success of my granddaughter Liora in life.
Great. So we can end on, we'll do one more intense question and then we can end on a lighter note. So this question is, what do you think about Holocaust fatigue?
Okay, I am very, very concerned about Holocaust deniers, people who say, stop talking about it, it never was, and about people who have Holocaust fatigue, who say, we are already sick and tired to hear about it. And that's one reason why I'm very active at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. And I would like to welcome any young or older people, any person. We have an exhibit right now on Auschwitz that is upsetting, but very important. People have to go twice, Leora. Once they're going to be very upset. There is even a wagon in front of the museum, the wagon that took Jews and gypsies and homosexuals, anybody whom the Nazis thought is not like them, to the concentration camps. You have to go twice, because the second time I went, I learned things about anti-Semitism. I learned things about the Nazis came to power that I did not know. It's an excellent exhibit. As soon as possible, when it's open again, everybody to please go.
Going back and forth again, what do you think about sending nude pictures to another person? And the question also asks, what do you think about sexting? Do you know what that is?
What is sexting?
Sexting is when you like text sexual things to each other.
Okay, please don't. First of all, please no pictures of nakedness, because you never know what happens in life. And you don't want a picture like this floating in the universe. Let's suppose that you're not staying together. You do not want a naked picture to be floating in the universe, and you have no control. And also this explicit sexting, this explicit being on it is not my cup of tea. I'm old-fashioned and a square, and I do believe the best sex is private between two people, can be two men, two women, or a man and a woman, but private. Keep your privacy.
Okay. Well, do you have time for one or two more, Omi?
Of course, for you, anything. Anything for you.
What do you think about anti-Semitism today?
All right, that's a lecture for another time. I'm very concerned. Wait, I'm very concerned at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. Please let everybody know to get in touch with them, because we are very concerned about it. And we're going to have lots of programs about anti-Semitism and what to do so that we are not going to just say, oh, how terrible, but that we are going, like what you are doing, to actively combat it. That's what you are doing in Zionist. And that's what everybody should be involved in. So become a member of Zionist and also check out the Museum of Jewish Heritage.
Perfect. Nice. Thank you, Omi, for being here.
I think Amanda has... Tell Amanda you did very well.
I'm back. I wasn't going to pop on at the end, but I wanted to jump on and first of all say thank you so much again, Dr. Ruth. And the thing that I really wanted to say was that I've been getting a lot of messages from friends and family who are watching, and I see in the chat people talking about how they've seen you speak all over the world so many times, but never seen you interviewed by your granddaughter. And I think that this, I mean, I'm so emotional.
It's a first.
This is so special. Sorry, say that again.
That's the very first time. Amanda, first time ever that Leora interviewed me. And that's all because she's so enthusiastic about Zionist organization. So all of the people who are listening to us, make sure you get their phone numbers, make sure you get their, whatever that internet stuff is, in order to stay in
on the interweb, yeah.
Send us their internet stuff.
Yes.
And Laura, you did very well. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for being here. If you're interested in getting involved in Zioness, please check out our website, zioness.org. As Amanda said, we have over 30 chapters around the country of activists that are both Zionist and progressive and who stick with both of those values. So thanks for being here.
And who do what Dr. Ruth has done her whole life, which is stand up with all of her authentic self, empowering all the marginalized communities in the world, including the Jewish people. Thank you. Love it. Thank you so much. And we hope to see all of you on another webinar soon. Take care.
Bye, Leora.